Hello, everybody. We are live streaming. Welcome to a Comic Tropes live chat. If you haven't been to one before, I have been sketching a piece here. Going to just gonna do some drawing. I was in the mood, and hopefully, there's a bunch of people out there that we can talk to, talk comics, see what's new out in that world, and yeah, just be nerds. Just enjoy being nerds, right? So, nothing too fancy here. I guess I've been thinking about She-Hulk specifically ever since my review of Chuck Austin. It's X-Men. Hello, Matthew McLeod. Hello. Hello, Chrissy. This is nice. Boy, I feel like the light is really strange, like it's sort of washed out, but at least it's clear, right? So give me just a sec. I am about to have a ramen, one of my favorite little drinks. I don't know if y'all have them, but these are fun. Actually, here, since I'm opening it, I'll do it on camera. Now, ramen is a drink that, like, this is a glass bottle with a glass marble right in the middle. And if you drink it too fast, the marble goes up here and blocks how you drink it. So you have to sort of sip it. You can't have it super fast. So, yeah, kind of a nerdy drink there. Oh, looks like I've got this video on autofocus. Let me just adjust that real quick. But nice to see so many folks here. I appreciate it. We're going to have some fun today. We're going to draw some stuff. We're going to talk some nerdy stuff, etc. All right, turned off the autofocus, so we are good to go. Wow, a lot of folks jumping right in. Can't see you all. So with a ramen, you pop out from this little plastic piece that's on top. You pop out this little tool. Listen to this satisfying sound, okay? I'm going to shut up for a minute because this is satisfying. I don't know if you heard that, but that popped the marble down here now. There's a marble. And now I can drink my fizzy lemonade slowly. Have these characters squared off before? You know, I'm not 100% sure, to be honest. Yeah, it was some ASMR. I don't know if you guys have had this. Ramen is basically, it's a Japanese carbonated drink. It is kind of aimed at kids. That's why it's little and why it has this like marble in there that's that can block you from drinking too fast. But I find it very sweet and refreshing. So anyway, yeah. So today I ended up having a snow day from work. The weather here in the Seattle area was surprisingly snowy. Like, we really got hit. I didn't believe it was coming, but it did. So yeah, I basically just have a lot of the day to goof off to a degree, and I was like, well, I should at least do one productive thing, so I was like, hey, bonus time to connect with the audience, get a sense of what's important in the world of comics to everybody else. So that's what I'm doing, yo. Where is everybody? Is anybody out there, like, in the area where, you know, you're getting hit by, like, say, the polar vortex or anything? I grew up in New England, so the Boston area, and we got some pretty big winters there. A lot of shoveling. After college, I lived in the Boston area, and I lived at a row of houses that were turned into apartments, and it was a very sort of narrow street. So when it snowed, the drifts were really high, and they'd be about as high as your car. That was a lot of shoveling. Oh, looks like Michael Harrison is in a warm area. She's gut punching him for that awful plot where they slept together. Exactly. I'm just having her sort of like I'm thinking football, I guess, lately. So I'm having her like just drive her shoulder into Juggernaut. But you know, he's unstoppable. Unstoppable. And I'm just trying to be kind of delicate with my brush here because it's actually pretty thick. I needed to get actually a better or newer brushes. The ones I have are sort of running out low on ink, but it's such bad weather I didn't feel like it would be safe to drive to the local art supply store. But I kind of like it when it's like this and you almost feel kind of trapped in your home, but you're just going to relax and make the most of it, you know? Make food out of whatever you have around and maybe even start a fire. Leslie, Taco Guy says, last week we were at around negative 40 Celsius. Good Lord, that is exceptionally cold, my friend. One thing I want to do while I'm drawing this piece is try to really indicate some real motion and stuff. So I'm going to try to draw a bunch of She-Hulk's hair flowing in the right direction. And then I'm going to try to throw in a lot of sort of gravel and stuff just exploding outwards. So I may occasionally just sort of pause and just sort of be drawing little bits of debris like this, just to sort of give it some character. And over time, hopefully that will start to fill up in a convincing manner. All right, so are there questions? Let's see. Just bought some Doom Patrol issues like 5 minutes ago. Oh, that's cool. That's cold. Cold? How do you feel She-Hulk going back to being savage? It's fine. It's time, I guess, to try something a little new. But I really prefer her as a lawyer. I think that's the most interesting angle, that she contrasts very well with being incredibly strong, yet having like a really clever mind and being more comfortable, just sort of merging her two worlds. I actually think She-Hulk would make a fantastic television show for Marvel. You could just sort of be a little bit funny. You could go dramatic with various legal cases that are sort of specific to superheroes. But courtroom drama can definitely be life or death. So I think that would make for a really cool show. And I think that it would be kind of budget friendly too, you know? You just get like a really fit lady and probably use, what do you call it? Just body paint. I mean, that's what they've done with Mystique, what they did with Hulk back in the 70s on the TV show. So I think it could be a really cool show. We all miss Lawyer Jen. She'll be back. She'll be back when the right writer gets her. Yeah. Too bad they made her a dud. I don't think she's a dud. I think she's had a lot of good runs. It's an interesting character. So, anybody else out there get a snow day from, school or work or anything? If not today, just recently. I have to admit that was kind of a treat. I did make it all the way into work, but then we closed because of how bad it was. So I was ready to go to work, but hey, nothing wrong with basically getting sick pay while not being sick. Nothing wrong with that. It was intimidating, though. I live at the very top of a hill, quite a tall hill, and it's very steep, actually. So for several blocks, the streets were just closed. None of them had been plowed, and I saw plenty of accidents, other cars that had just slid all the way down. So I had to choose very carefully, like, the route that I was going to go today. That was intimidating. I will definitely admit to that. 60, wow. Lots of ice. Last week, my son was home from school 2 days. My -60 wind chills? That is amazing. That is amazing. What's your favorite superhero? And greetings from Mexico. You do an amazing job. Oh, buenas noches. And thank you. Who's my favorite superheroine? You know, it might be She-Hulk, actually. I think it probably is. I like She-Hulk quite a bit. Yeah, I think she's really cool when written well. Which is a lot of the time. I liked John Byrne's run when it was just being funny. I thought that was interesting. One of the last characters Stan Lee wrote at Marvel before sort of retiring to the West Coast to manage Marvel properties that could potentially get adapted into movies and TV. He wrote the first issue of Savage She-Hulk, and I liked the Dan Slott era. I liked it quite a bit. Hello, Ryu Goomba. North Dakota. Oh, you're in North Dakota. Interesting. Wow. Oh, see, I drank too fast, and now the marble is caught up there. There. Why did they retcon She-Hulk sleeping with Juggernaut? Because I don't think it was in character. I don't think she would sleep with a known supervillain. She's a pretty noble hero, and I don't think that, like, you know, one or two good acts would turn her on. It never really felt fully in character, in my opinion. And they retconned it in her title, which was very comedy based at the time, as well as being like a super deep dive into like the nerdier aspects of comic book continuity and retcons and metatextual takes. So it was very in keeping with the title at the time to do that. That said, I do like Juggernaut. I think he's an interesting villain. Definitely like one of the most physically powerful, and he's got a little bit of character. You know, he's a simple bully. He's not necessarily a murderer or a bank robber. He's just a bully that accidentally stumbled upon insane power. And, you know, think about that. Like, would the average person really become a hero if they were gifted with such insane power, like, overnight? Or would they just sort of retain their basic nature and not know how to use it properly? I don't know. It's an interesting question. On the dark side of the moon, it's -280. Yeah, that's too cold for me. I was thinking of visiting the dark side of the moon next, but you know what? I think I'll go to New Zealand next instead. The Grant Morrison run of Doom Patrol was crazy. Danny the Street was awesome. Danny the Street is a pretty amazing out there character, man. What Venom comics would I recommend? Everybody says that the current run by Donny Cates is fantastic. It's gotten such wide critical acclaim that even though I haven't read it, I definitely say that's probably a safe bet. Personally, I liked the Rick Remender run that started with Tony Moore. I thought that was an awesome version of Venom, where the symbiote is being controlled by Flash Thompson, the supporting character from Spider-Man comics. And I don't know, it was really interesting. Flash, at that point, had lost his legs while serving in our military. And he was given another chance to continue serving by utilizing the Venom symbiote. And they create an interesting relationship. I don't know. I think it's really strong. I think it's crazy. I think the art is awesome. So that's a version that I really personally liked. I don't know. I've never been the biggest fan of Eddie Brock. I don't feel like there's necessarily a lot to his character, but people are saying that the Donny Cates version these days has changed that quite a bit. So, cool. Something I'm curious to read at some point. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I crossed 40,000 subscribers either late last night or early this morning, depending on what time zone you're in. But thank you to all of you for making something like that possible. That's definitely an accomplishment, and I feel good about it. And hopefully, it'll keep going. I don't know at what point, like maybe you hit a tipping point where it starts getting shared via the Google algorithm to enough people to like really take off quickly. I think it's been kind of a grind getting to where the show is, but I don't care. I'm having a good time. I'm talking about what I love talking about, and I like interacting with all of you and discovering what other comics out there are good and that everybody loves. You're hitting Warhammer numbers. Warhammer. Yeah, what is it? I forget what the game is. I've never played it. Is it Warhammer 50K or something like that? Warhammer, yeah. Oh, it's Warhammer 40K. All right, good. All right. You still deserve. I don't know about deserve. I mean, I'm trying to get there, but I don't know what that would mean. Like, do I deserve more? I've earned what I've earned. I would love more. I would love to do this full time. Don't know if that'll ever necessarily happen, but maybe. Maybe. I wish I had more time, basically. I do think that, like, if I had more time, I could edit a little better, like, so that I could sort of insert both humor and like refine the script a little bit. I really don't have that kind of time. So that's the thing I would like most, is the gift of time to focus on the show. And I would love to create some sort of related extra content where, like, do interviews and stuff with various pros. I think I have some connections that I could utilize. I would love to go to more conventions and do more interviews. Not just like, oh, what's your proudest moment of what you've done and what do you have coming up? I don't really. That's interesting enough, but like I really want to dig down into what makes every individual creator different in terms of their work process. I would really like to break down an actual day. No, I haven't read Exile. Sorry. TMNT is getting another reboot. Yep, saw that. Let's see. I love the previously on intro. Good, thank you. Probably like a one-time joke there, but just something I've definitely been thinking of doing for a while and just was like, this will be the week I do it. So that was fun for me. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Thank you. I've got an interesting question. Who out there is your favorite late artist? As in an artist that you love who unfortunately, just isn't around anymore and can't produce any more artwork. Because I've got a bunch like that, man. I miss Will Eisner. I miss Alex Toth. And even more recently, like somebody like Mike Waringo. But I'm curious, like out there, like who's an artist that you love? Like could even be recent, like who's an artist that you love that has passed? For Doom Patrol, if you haven't read it yet, personally, I would just say start with the Grant Morrison stuff. Just jump into like the version that started in '87. I'll do an Alex Ross episode at some point, no question. Yeah. Oh, look at that! Saladin got a huge She-Hulk lot recently. That's awesome. Um, oh, look at these great suggestions. Kirby, Mike Wieringo, John Buscema, John Romita, Osamu Tezuka, Darwin Cook. I do miss Darwin Cook too. Michael Turner, another Darwin Cook, Dave Cockrum, yeah. Kirby, Wieringo, and Brayfogle. Brayfogle, yeah. That's true. He recently, yeah, yeah. I'm talking about recently, or not even recently, just like Len Wein. I'm just talking about artists that maybe you just miss. You wish you could have gotten a little more. Dave Gibbons is still around. Don't worry, Dave Gibbons is still around. Darwin Cook's passing is sad. Walt Simonson's around. Frank Frazetta, great. Yeah, we're talking about just recently passed, or not recently. I'm sorry, just artists who have passed that you still like. George Perez is still around, but he is retired. But you never know. Maybe he'll be able to still do something or other. Ross Andrew, good choice. Yeah, I like that. It's interesting finding like Yeah, I'm talking specifically deceased artists like that. Unfortunately, we won't get to see any more of. Earl Norham. I've heard that name, but I'm not thinking of what he did yet. The Buscemas, Michael Turner. Yeah, a lot of the same names popping up. Totally respect it. Of these, one of the ones that makes me saddest, though, is somebody like Darwin Cook that passed, before it should have been his time. Kind of just makes you think, like, it was all down to smoking, I wish he hadn't smoked. He could definitely still be around creating amazing stuff. Jean Giraud, Ditko, yeah, masters. The ones that make me saddest are the ones who pass, before it's reasonable to expect them to. That just hurts. Guys like Michael Turner and Darwin Cook should definitely still be around. We should be so lucky. At least we got them for a while. How about, here's a more fun thing. All right. Who is a comics creator, writer, artist, penciler, inker, colorist, letterer, editor, anybody? Like, who's somebody that you met at, like, a convention or in person, a store signing? Who's somebody that you met in person that was just, like, really nice and helped inspire you? Like, lived up to what you hope? Because they say things like, don't meet your heroes, it can be a bummer, but like, who's somebody that you met, like, that you had a great experience with? As a kid, I had a great experience with Ben Edlund, creator of The Tick. He's a local guy, got to meet him a couple times, and he was only a few years older than me. He definitely sort of inspired me and made me feel like, anybody that, like, has a good idea and works hard can do this, as long as you're, like, a good, positive person. I don't know. That was a really nice experience to meet Ben Edlund. Met lots of creators, but that was awesome. Bud Root, interesting. Trevor Von Eden, Ryan Otley. Yep, Ryan Otley's a pretty friendly dude. Jeff Smith. I haven't met Jeff Smith yet, now that I think of it. I'd love to. Frank Quitely. Oh, that's so nice to hear that he's good. Let's see. No one good comes to Australia? I thought Australia had a couple big conventions. I guess I didn't know. Sergio Aragonis. Oh, that's awesome, Keith. That's awesome. Definitely. I did meet him once. I've got an original piece of art by him. That was awesome. Stan Lee. Yup. Very, very friendly. Alex Saviuk. That's a cool. Yeah, I remember his run on Web of Spider-Man back in the 90s. Even late 80s, I think. Harvey Tolabao. He's a fellow Filipino artist, and he's just one of the nicest people I've ever met. I was nervous meeting someone who works for DC. Dan Coate. Look at all these great names. That's so cool. You guys have had some great experiences. Yeah, Kevin Smith definitely counts. And I agree. He is really nice in person. He's really nice. Yeah. Yep, Don Simpson's Megaton Man. I agree. Joseph Michael Listener. Yep. Alan Bellman. I'm not sure familiar with who Alan Bellman is. I'm sorry. Maybe I am, but I'm not. It's not coming to my mind right now. Who's Alan Bellman? Folks, I know I've mentioned this before, but this paper is really fun to ink on. I should have better tools. Paris paper, number 234. Chrissy, my fiance, got me this, and I really like working on it. I really enjoy it. Gets a strong recommend from me. It's smooth. It doesn't smudge. It just really holds the line well. Any mistakes you'll see are just 100% the artist. But the paper isn't going to mess you up. My friend's comic store had the Usagi Yojimbo creator, Stan Sakai. Yeah. Awesome. I'm glad everybody has some really nice stories. The comics world is small. If you ever meet like one or two people in it, you'll realize like it's not that everybody knows everybody, but you only need to go like a degree or something to find that separation to somebody that knows somebody else. It is a small world. Even like, indie creators know. Mainstream creators usually have a few connections with some like foreign creators. So it's a small world. That's all. I guess I say that only in the sense that like if you're a jerk, it gets around. There is no hiding. There is no hiding. And some people are more forgiving than others. Anybody out there drawing or writing anything right now? Doing anything creative? Let's see. I just started watching your channel. Man, you know your history. Well, thanks. A lot of it I do know, but I also do research every episode just to like back up whatever I'm talking about. So some of it's just weird facts. A lot of it is weird facts and stuff that I've memorized, but some of it is also there's some actual work put in, like, just confirming that I have the right memory and stuff like that. So, and even then, every once in a while, I'll make a small mistake. People call me out if you ever read the comments. If I make a mistake, somebody is always there to catch me. Shocker. If I go quiet, it's just me concentrating on some piece or other of the drawing. Not ignoring anybody. All right, let's see. So the Juggernaut is actually a creature that was created by mystical means. I'm not sure why most people mistakenly think he's a mutant. Probably just because he shows up in the X-Men, so people just, if they're not familiar with his origin, it's a reasonable enough assumption. The X-Men go up against mutants primarily. But yeah, it's true. He's mystically formed. I've got there. Every once in a while I get that marble stuck in there. Need to slow that down. What artist do I love outside of comics? Well, that's an interesting question. There are definitely a number of painters that I appreciate that I've discovered because my fiance is a painter and she loves pop art. So But you know what? Like, we haven't been to a gallery lately, so I'm kind of blanking. Chrissy, if you're watching, can you like list off some of the artists that I like? I'm always bad at names, folks. I'm always bad at names. Like, for some reason, like when I'm on the spot, like I forget names very quickly. But if I think of one, I'll point it out. And if Chrissy's watching, maybe you can help me out with some of the artists you've introduced me to that I appreciate, because I like a lot of the same ones that she does. Well, I can think of one off the top of my head is Scott Brooks. If you want to look up paintings, Scott Brooks, I think, is amazing. Drew Struzan. Oh, yeah, that's a cool one. Of course, Drew Struzan is... I've got a book of his posters. His paintings and stuff that have turned into, like, movie posters. Maybe Chrissy's not here. Oh, Mark Ryden, Greg Simpkins, and, of course, Chrissy. That's true. Chrissy's a fantastic artist, who I'm a huge fan of. Let's see, TARDIS Rider. No, I haven't done Challengers of the Unknown. I have not done an episode about Challengers of the Unknown. An interesting idea that has very rarely been explored to big success, but they are an interesting group. They're very interesting. I don't know if Juggernaut is dead in the comics right now. But Chrissy also mentioned Red Walitsky and Alphonse Mucha. Yeah. Mark Ryden's work is so deep. Chrissy once did a painting of a skateboard, and she intentionally drew it to sort of semi-satirize, but also like a loving homage to Mark Ryden's work. It's very much... It's her work, but it's in his style. It's kind of hard to explain, but it was beautiful. It, of course, sold right away. I wish we had an easy photo to show you. It's pretty cool. Have I ever read any samurai manga? Well, I've read some. A little bit of Vagabond, a little bit of Lone Wolf and Cub, and I did a review on Blade of the Immortal. So yeah, I've done a few. I've read some. I would hardly call myself a huge expert in that specific subgenre, but absolutely I'm aware of it and have read some. And I'm a fan. I wish I had more time to read comics these days, because there's actually a lot of manga that I'd be interested in reading these days. Lone Wolf and Cub, yeah. Vagabond, yeah. What's your take on Jim Mahfood's art style writing? He's a cool dude. It's not my personal favorite. I can't claim to be like a massive fan, but I totally respect what he does, if that makes sense. It's not quite what I like, but then there's like artists that I think a lot of people would say are similar that I do like. For instance, who did Tank Girl and Gorillas and stuff? Sorry, like I said, I'm bad at names. Jamie, somebody out there knows who I'm talking about. The guy who created that. I'm blanking. But he's kind of a similar artist in some ways to Jim Mahfood, and I really like the art of like Tank Girl and Gorillas a lot. Jamie Hewlett, thank you, Adolf. Yeah, so big fan of that. And I think a lot of people could argue that Jim Mahfood draws in a similar type of, not style per se, but at least the same sort of general genre. But anyway, I like one and not the other. But that's art, isn't it? Like, beauty's in the eye of the beholder and all that. Trying to kind of actually draw a little faster than I sometimes do, which means some mistakes, but that just means that that's my style, I guess. Like, whatever sort of flaws you throw in there are part of your artwork, whether you like it or not. Oh, hold on. Chrissy might have just sent me an image of that skate deck that I was just talking about. Yep. Let me show you this. I don't know how well this will show up on camera, but Chrissy did this painting once. This is on a skate deck. Maybe I have to do it down here. You can see it really is satirizing that sort of Mark Ryden style with the lamb and just the sort of colors and the roundness and everything. I think this is a great piece. I think it's really cool. Yep. She's really talented. I'm always bugging Chrissy to start her own YouTube channel and really like dedicate the time to sit down and do like live paintings or edit together her process so that she can talk about that, because when she has the time and she creates a series of paintings, usually very successful. And that's actually why we were in Hong Kong. Not quite this time last year. It was more like March last year. Her artwork was in a gallery there. So she's had artwork in Seattle and DC and a few other cool places. We need to find a gallery in LA sometime. She's never been to LA. I want to go to LA. Let's see. Do I ever do reviews or critiques on indie books? Yeah, I would say so. I tend to focus on indie books that have like had some sort of an impact, so that I can discuss why that's important. An example would be talking about like Love and Rockets. That's one. But I've got plans to discuss this year Cerebus and Bone and probably Stray Bullets. Hopefully The Tick. So, and I've talked about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and I need to go back to talk about Mirage Studios, because that really is an example of an incredibly successful indie self-published book. So, yeah. Painting tropes with your host, Chrissy. What's your favorite anime, Chris? For a movie, probably Akira. I would say that's overall my favorite. And then for like a TV show, maybe Cowboy Bebop. But I also like FLCL a lot. And Scud, yeah, that's indie. So I've mixed in a few indie things. I definitely love independent stuff. When I lived in the DC area, before I moved out here to the Seattle area, I would go every year to SPX religiously. That was my favorite, still is like my favorite comic book convention. It stands for Small Press Expo. It's in Bethesda, Maryland every year. And you just see so much passion and creativity on display. It's my favorite. Like, I do enjoy going to the big conventions. I go to New York Comic Con. I go to Emerald City Comic Con. I've been to like Wizard Worlds in Chicago and stuff like that. Like, I've been to other cities' big conventions. They're fun. There's no question about it. I have a great time. I meet friends. I see cool comics and merch. But SPX, man, there is so much there that will like make you just adore what you can do with comics. I find interesting non-fictional comics. I find autobiographical comics. I find humor comics that are just unlike anything you get anywhere else. Crime comics. Because, like, yeah, superheroes are cool and all, but sometimes you just want something different. Like, there's so much superhero stuff that it's like, okay, well, now I'm in the mood for what else can you do with comics? Because you can do a lot, and I want to see that. And SPX definitely is my favorite for discovering that. But there's some other great independent conventions. There's Space and Ape, I think, is one, right? And then Mocha and Mouse. So there's a lot of really great small press conventions. Concrete, yep. Concrete's not... See, is Concrete exactly indie? Because it was published by Dark Horse. But it's definitely something I'll talk about. I would say that Dark Horse isn't quite indie. But that's me. Just erasing a little bit of a pencil so that I can sort of see what I'm drawing a little better. All right, there we go. What's your favorite convention out there? Is it like a local one, or is it like one that you go out of your way to attend? Have you just had like one particular great experience? I would definitely be curious what convention means a lot to you. But for me, it's definitely SPX. Let's see. SuperCon, Rainforest? Nope, never heard of that one. MegaCon Orlando? Sure. Saluki Comic Con in Carbondale, Illinois. Philly Comic Con. McLeod, North Carolina. Okay. San Diego Comic Con? No worries, that's awesome. What else? In Brazil, they've got FIQ. That would be fun to go to. What else is good? Some folks, it's going so fast. No, I've never been to a furry con. I didn't know that was necessarily a thing, to be honest. That's news to me. I'm not too familiar with Darwin Cook, but I did an image search and his art looks wild. What books would you recommend I start reading? Oh, cool question. He did a Justice League book set in the sort of Cold War era. It's like a complete reimagining of everything. It's called Justice League New Frontier. I think that's pretty fantastic. And then he did a bunch of books where he adapted this pulp crime character called Parker. He did like 4 graphic novels. Each of those are titled like after whatever the book was that he adapted. Like maybe Payback was one. I can't remember the titles off the top of my head, but look up Darwin Cook Parker, and you'll find what he did. I miss him. He's pretty great. He's really creative. I haven't read Berserk. I'm aware of it, but I haven't read that. Sorry. Yeah, I'll definitely do Darwin Cook at some point. I want to do it justice. I met him. He was so nice. We got to have a wonderful conversation, and yeah, I wish he was still around. What's your take on webcomics? Webcomics are fantastic. Webcomics give you so much. I mean, the fact that we can now, as creators, go like, hey, it might cost too much to print publish this, or I can't find a publisher, but I can still share my vision with the world at like, a relatively normal cost. Like, that's what makes webcomics amazing, is you're going to find passion behind them. Like every time there's going to be passion behind it. And that usually shines through. So even if the material isn't for you, you have to at least respect that level of passion that a webcomic indicates. So yeah, I've got a lot of respect for anybody that does a webcomic. I've definitely given some thought to going that route myself. It's really just a question of having the time more than anything else. Wish I had more time. It's a good thing She-Hulk doesn't wear much jewelry, because you know what? Probably get broken in her fights. Are you going to color this or just ink it? Probably just ink. I do have some, like, Copics here, so maybe I'll color it. It sort of depends on how long this takes me to sort of getting to a workable state where it could be colored. I'm trying not to like bog myself down in tiny details that aren't necessary, but we'll see. Let's see. I'm sorry I'm missing some questions. I'm glad that there's so many folks here. Hope it's okay that, I'm catching as catch can while I draw and stuff. You're a good artist. Question, do you watch any other comic book centric YouTube channels? Just one. I like, it's relatively new, Cartoonist Kayfabe. And the reason I watched that one is because it's two actual professional creators, first of all, Ed Piscor and Jim Rugg, both of whose work I like, but that's almost coincidental. Their gimmick is that they take Wizard magazine and they're reading it in order from the beginning and using that, like, and the articles in there to talk about comic book artists and writers, publishers, etc. So in a way, they're covering some of the sort of same material that I do in terms of like looking at technique or history, and they're doing that without like making it a documentary per se. So it's a different angle. I do try to avoid other YouTubers that discuss comic books because I don't want to get influenced by what they've decided for a topic or what information they've included, their presentation. I really don't want to risk that happening. I'm sure that there are going to be instances of parallel thinking, especially like, if there's a big Marvel or DC movie coming up. It's not a surprise that we'd probably both cover like some similar topics. So I specifically don't want to get influenced by them. So no, I really tend to avoid other comic book related YouTube channels. I did one episode on Mark Waid Seahawks. I talked about his Flash run to a degree, so that was an episode. I'll probably talk about him again at some point. Cartoonist Kayfabe. Yeah, they're good. I'm sure that at some point we'll do a collaboration. We just don't have an idea, but I like them. And if you haven't read their books, Street Angel, Hip Hop Family Tree, or X-Men Grand Design, I definitely recommend the comics that are created by the guys at Cartoonist Kayfabe. I don't think that they sort of brag or talk up their own comics like too much. They don't really name drop or anything, but they happen to be guys whose work I respect. So when like I didn't know that they were like friends or that they, it was a surprise when their show sort of debuted, but I love it. It's a treat. Let's see. Tropes episode for the MCU. Yeah, I mean, that would be fun, but that's probably something that I'd only be able to do if I had a lot of extra time. Like, I want to focus a little bit more on comics specifically, but if there was a specific run that was directly adapted for a movie, I would talk about the context there, but actual, like, reviews of the movies or any sort of angle there, I just feel like I don't have the time. I wish I had time to do more, and I would definitely consider that. But right now, it's just not in the cards. That said, I do generally like the Marvel movies. I'll just say that much. I generally like them quite a bit. So, yeah. Now this is like a random thought, but I was just watching recently a documentary on Netflix about the Fire Festival. If you hadn't heard, it was like this, it was promoted as like, this like extravagant musical like party that was going to be on an island in the Bahamas and be like total luxury and everything. And it ultimately was kind of a scam. Like the people never had they were running it. They never had anything organized well. And the documentary I saw on Netflix was really interesting, but they had like a lot of sort of footage where I kept wondering how they had access to it. And turns out that the marketing team that was like hired to promote that festival and was kind of complicit in a lot of the crimes and has been like, sued over it, they produced that documentary. But they don't disclose that when you're watching it. Like, talk about a scam. So anyway, there's also one on Hulu, but I don't have Hulu, so I didn't see that one. I don't know if it's any good. It is an interesting documentary. There's no question about that. But just know that it's sort of being put together, and people that are profiting it are some of the people that contributed to the failure and are in on the scam. So yeah, kind of scammy. I know that's not related to comics. It's just something I watched recently and then learned about today, that like the people that are like semi-complicit and guilty in what happened made the documentary about it. It's crazy. Internet Historian's documentary is better. Okay, I'll look into that. Have you ever read any of Hirohiko Araki's work? No, I haven't. I'll have to look into that. Are you going to collab with HCC 788 again anytime soon? I sure hope so. We talk all the time. That guy has become one of the best sounding boards and resources I could have. Like, he'd been doing YouTube longer, and I just consider myself so lucky to have connected with that guy. And the reason was a total coincidence. He randomly won a drawing when I was giving away a prize. And it was actually a G.I. Joe prize, which is probably why he, submitted himself to potentially win. But, yeah, we've become friends. And I'll at least be doing something for his annual Cobra Convergence project, where everybody that like does something G.I. Joe or specifically Cobra related for July. So I have an idea for some G.I. Joe content this July. And I know I've covered G.I. Joe plenty. All I can say is I grew up with G.I. Joe and Transformers, and they still kind of mean a lot to me, at least not in nostalgic terms. So, yeah, I will be doing something with him then. I guess you could say the Fire Festival crashed and burned. Totally. I don't have any thoughts on Warhammer 40k. I have not played it, so I can't speak to that. Sorry. Araki does JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Oh, okay. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. I want to read it. I have not yet. I almost bought it last weekend, but I was like, you know what? I don't have time to read it right now. But I almost bought the first issue, or the first volume. Is there any chance you do an episode on Ed Brubaker? A terrific chance. I'm a humongous fan of Ed Brubaker. I definitely want to do a deep dive into why I think his work works, or at least the stuff that I like by him, which is mostly his crime fiction. And I might do that by looking at like Sleeper, which is like superhero related crime fiction, and could be a good entry point for like everybody that doesn't know about him. Anyway. Fatale, yep, totally. Captain America run made him relevant again, yeah. Ed Brubaker, one of my favorite artists and writers in comics, period. Oh, that's interesting to hear, KNT. Yeah, I'll have to read JoJo's Bizarre Adventure someday. Yeah, I'll probably discuss Malibu comics at some point. Maybe I'll do an episode on stuff like, Pacific and Eclipse and Malibu and that sort of like 80s era small press type stuff. Small press that still tried to do like superheroes, mainstream material. Please explain why Miles Morales works. Well, he works best when he's just a modern depiction of a young urban teenager dealing with the same stuff that, like, you know, made Peter Parker relevant back in the 60s. I think that his movie really improved on Miles, made him his own character a little bit more, because I like that he's a smart kid that's a little nerdy. I like that, you know, his relationship with each of his parents. But the one thing that the recent Into the Spider-Verse movie really did to benefit him was just sort of showing his interest in the arts, like how he would make graffiti and, like, you know, little freestyle raps for himself and stuff like that. I was like, oh, cool. This gives me a little bit better idea into, like, you know, his personality. Yeah, you know, Peter Parker's just been around for a long time, and he's an awesome character that a lot of us love. And at the same time, he's been around for so long that it really is hard to think of him as the version that he was originally envisioned, which is like, you know, a young teenager. So I think that it's just the passage of time. You know, if Batman or Superman was initially presented to be a teenager, I think we'd be running into the same issue. You know, fortunately, they just started playing middle-aged men, which doesn't really date it. But that said, like, certainly characters like Superboy have had to be updated. Robin has had to be updated. Characters that are supposed to be youthful, it's hard to believe in them as youthful forever. Even Archie comics sort of ended up coming to a point where, hey, we're just telling lighthearted stories about teenagers, but we had to they had to update it for today. There's just a point at which, you know, you can't be reading about teenagers for like 10 years and still think of them as teenagers. It needs to sort of be freshened. So I think Miles Morales helps with that, because he's a much more fresh young guy. Valiant Comics, I'll talk about Valiant Comics history, possibly in connection with just talking a lot about Jim Shooter. We'll see. I miss She-Hulk breaking the fourth wall, definitely. She was doing that well before Deadpool was even created. Advice on how to write a good set of characters? Base it on real life. Base it on a. It can be a hyper real, you know, a bigger version of real life, but it has to have relatable stakes, or the characters have to have motivations that you can understand. Like, they want respect, or they want to live in a safer area. I don't know what they want. You know, they want to make up for, like, you know, something that they did in the past, and they want to earn redemption. They have to have a believable motivation, no matter what sort of world they're in, no matter what kind of a person they are. They have to have a believable motivation. So just give that a lot of thought as to, like, why are you telling this story? And the reason should usually be that you want to put them through a chain of events that will change them in some way, give them a different perspective on life and what they want out of it and how they can accomplish it, and is it worth accomplishing? You know, the questions like that. Like, if you, no matter what kind of a story you're telling, you have to have that, or people aren't going to relate to it. It's just going to be too weird if they're just like, I want to be evil and I want to rule the world, etc. Like, you have to have something more realistic than that, or grounded, I should say, something that people can understand. Hopefully that helps. Any thoughts on Dark Horse movie franchise comics? That's an interesting angle. I'm trying to think, like, have they ever done a good job with any of them aside from, you know, the first Mask movie? I'm trying to think. Like, they've certainly had plenty of adaptations, but I'm trying to think of any that like stand out as memorable. You know, like something like Barbed Wire, or I know they've had a couple others, like, you know, science fiction things, but I can't think of anything that's been like well done off the top of my head. What has Dark Horse adapted that was good? I don't know. Umbrella Academy? Yeah, that might be in the near future. Oh, Hellboy. That's right. Hellboy was from Dark Horse. Thanks. Good point. Good point. Good point. Has anyone even heard of 100 Bullets? Yeah, I read 100 Bullets. I like the first half more than the second half. I like the first half when it was more of an anthology story of people getting, like, you know, these unmarked guns, and they could do whatever they wanted with them. And it just sort of told you something about those characters. And then all of a sudden it sort of like grew into this complex mythology of, like, you know, a secret society. And I was just like, they have a weird way of accomplishing their goals. And it lost me a little bit. I did always like the artwork by, oh shoot, what's the artist's name? I mean, the writer was Brian Azzarello, and the artist was, he's from South America. He was really good. Who was he? I'm forgetting right now, folks. Do you remember when She-Hulk banged Juggernaut? Yeah, it was in the review I did 2 weeks ago. So yeah, I would say I remember that. I can generally remember about 2 weeks' time. Generally. Well, let's see. What do I have for colors? Do I even have the right colors to color this? I don't know. Have I ever heard of I love Kim Jung-gi. Kim Jung-gi is a master. Eduardo Riso. Thank you. Eduardo Riso was the artist of 100 Bullets. I'm sorry I couldn't remember that earlier. Well, I've got some greens. But do I have a burgundy type thing for the Juggernaut or skin? Questionable. Let's see here. Yeah, I might have colors that will work enough. So I'll give a shot at coloring this. Let me just take a quick picture of it just in case my colors ruin it. Let's see. All right, here we go. Oh, and I need to do one thing here. She has boots on. Today is the yesterday of tomorrow. That's true. What do you think of Swamp Thing? I think that Alan Moore's Swamp Thing is fantastic. I love that. Can Hulk even beat Juggernaut? Yeah, probably. Don't you have a scanner? Actually, I don't think I do. And I never really scan my art because I don't really keep it. I either sell it or recycle it. Alright, so let's see here. Yeah, that color will work. So I don't know if you guys have ever played around with these Copics. They're pretty cool. They're alcohol based, so they blend with one another if you want to do that. They do bleed a little, but this paper is definitely helping counteract that because this paper doesn't allow for much bleed. So I've got that working for me. And the reason I opened both ends is if you only open one, it can create a weird suction thing where like all of a sudden a bunch of ink can like spill out the bottom when you're working on something. So you have to sort of open both ends to keep it working. We'll see if this helps. Now, I definitely don't consider myself a great colorist because I'm not great at blending, at least digitally and stuff, to make it like, you know, look its best. I also worry that like in terms of color theory, that I don't have the most refined palette. I know what I like, and I know what I want it to look like, but I don't always necessarily know how to get there. So I could definitely use some training in that regard. But it's important to me to try to do the job of absolutely everyone that makes a comic. So I have lettered comics, colored comics, penciled, inked, written, edited, worked with the printer. It's very important to me that I know every job so that I can respect the time and effort it takes for that person, even if I am not doing that, or if I just need to help coordinate things, that I really understand what goes into it. Even if I can't pull it off as well as somebody else, it's very important to me that I understand every aspect of comics. So I've constantly worked on things like this, trying to color or something, even if I don't consider myself good at it, just to like keep my hand in it and just try to understand that. I think if you're, no matter what you're trying to do, whether you're trying to be a writer or an artist, it's important to have a respect and understanding for every role in comics. But I think it also helps me. Oh, hold on. Looks like I got a super chat. Oops. Let me go back up and see what that says. I'm so sorry. See Kim! Thank you, Craig. That's really appreciated. What a kind and generous super chat. Sorry I almost missed it. Very much appreciated. That's the kind of stuff that helps me have just a little bit more flexibility that I can actually make comic tropes. Because I have a full-time job, but I don't know if it would completely pay the bills the way I need it to. I don't know. Fortunately, I make a little bit from YouTube and folks like you, so I appreciate that support. Wow. Very generous. Anyway, I was just talking about how I like to try to do every job in comics, even if I don't do it well. Let's see. Do you have a favorite fantasy artist? Do I have a favorite fantasy artist? I don't know that I do. It could be that I don't read enough in terms of like fantasy comics and stuff like that. I used to read more when I was younger. Certainly was reading stuff like Game of Thrones when it first came out, and it's been a long time since that started. And then in comics, I've read stuff like Sandman. I like Charles Vess. In terms of comics, I like what he can do. I think he has a delicate touch. I think that in terms of covers and stuff, James Jean's work on Fables, his covers on Fables were absolutely gorgeous. I've actually got a hardcover book of those covers because I just think that work was incredible. So I mean, I would consider that fantasy, but I don't know if that's necessarily the most informed opinion you could get out there. There's probably people that read more fantasy and more fantasy comics that could have a number of people that they could tick off as fantastic fantasy artists. And I guess I don't necessarily have that. What do you think of Juggernaut from Deadpool 2? Perfect, Had the right attitude. He's powerful. Technically, they didn't even they didn't beat him so much as just temporarily stall him. I loved it. It was funny. Yeah, I liked it quite a bit. I liked how they portrayed him. I mean, it wasn't as good as obviously X-Men 3. Vinnie Jones is the Juggernaut. I think that for all of us that work in or read comics, that's the definitive take on the Juggernaut. I don't think anyone would argue that. That Vinnie Jones perfectly nailed it. He looked right. He sounded right. He had really clever dialogue. Nobody has ever found anything that they could complain about that iteration of the Juggernaut. X-Men 3 is just perfect. They nailed it. Kudos to Brett Ratner, I guess, right? Let's see. Riri was depicted somewhat sexily on the cover. Who went? Oh, Jesus. Whatever. Juggernaut is like Goro from Mortal Kombat. Both are overpowered and cheap. But he has a weakness, you know? He's vulnerable to mental attacks, so there's a way to shut him down. I mean, it's important that he had that weakness initially because, you know, for at least one story, he worked really well. He was a very personal antagonist for Charles Xavier, and Charles could beat him, but he needed the help of the team that he'd built. So Juggernaut was a great antagonist the very first time. And being so overpowered, you know, it gives you opportunities to have him go up against characters like Thor, and I think he's gone up against the Hulk. I can't remember a specific issue right now, though. And that's kind of cool. I've always sort of felt like Doctor Strange should be able to take him down. Like if Juggernaut is powered by Kidorak, that, like, you know, that should be kind of a simple spell for Doctor Strange to just be like, okay, I'm going to block your access to those powers and shut him down whenever need be. I don't know. I guess that's boring, but to me it's the same as like having Charles Xavier just sort of be able to show up and be like, okay, I'm shutting down your brain. But if it was somehow tough to cast that spell, I don't know, maybe that would be an interesting villain for Doctor Strange. Juggernaut from X-Men 3 sounded like Shrek. Who would win, Juggernaut or Wimpy? It depends on, you know, how hungry Wimpy is and whether Juggernaut is standing between Wimpy and some hamburgers. Because if so, then unfortunately, I guess Juggernaut goes down. Can't stop Wimpy from getting those delicious cheeseburgers. Let's be real here. Be interesting to see Juggernaut go up against Superman. That's something that could have been interesting in, like, you know, Marvel versus DC comics. But instead they had Superman fight Venom. Interesting choice. Oh, almost forgot this guy. All right. Let's see. A little purple, maybe. He'd gladly pay it back on Tuesday. There you go. Superman also fought the Hulk. Did he? I don't remember that part. Superman fought the Hulk. I'm thinking of, like, you know, Marvel DC All Access and stuff, and I just don't remember that. I have to imagine that they had Superman win with something like, you know, throwing him into the atmosphere or using heat vision from above, something like that. But I also feel like Hulk is so strong that he maybe could shrug that stuff off, take Superman out with, like, you know, a thunderclap, weird things like that. That could be interesting. That could be an interesting matchup. All right, let's get She-Hulk green. Hulk fought Superman in the Worlds Collide crossover. It was the Banner Hulk, though. Jeez, I don't remember that. Huh. Superman won, but it was a fan vote. Okay, yeah, I guess I just don't remember. Well, that's cool, though. That's cool. Fan votes probably aren't the best way to go for actually writing a story. because it isn't, an official sanctioned, a boxing match or anything. It's a real fight that can go all sorts of different ways, but whatever. That Marvel DC thing, like, I remember being very disappointed by it at the time. Now, there have been Marvel DC crossovers that I've quite enjoyed, but that All Access one was kind of junk. I didn't think the art was very good, and because of, like, the fan votes, sometimes there wasn't much space given to the fights. So you had a fight between Wolverine and Lobo where they threw each other behind like a bar counter, and then Wolverine just stands up and is like, phew, I won. And I'm like, how? We don't even get to see it? We don't even get to see the fight. You're not going to give us that. Like, the whole reason we're watching this is to see these characters that would normally not meet fight. And you're just going to tell us, oh, this one won because you voted it that way. But we won't show you how it happened. It just did. Like, it was kind of weak sauce. So personally, I was not a fan of that. X-Men versus Teen Titans. That one was good. Some cool early artwork by Walt Simonson. Darkseid, Phoenix. It was awesome. It was really cool. The early stuff like Batman, Hulk, Superman, Spider-Man, I like that stuff quite a bit. And I really liked the JLA Avengers crossover. I thought that, that was very fun, and that was a cool little crossover. But DC Marvel All Access, I could definitely live without. That one did nothing for me. In my Venom episode, I talk about just how ridiculous it is. Like, Venom tosses Superman around like a rag doll, and then Spider-Man joins up, and Venom still gives them both a huge challenge. And it's like, come on, man. Superman can't take on Venom. He's got heat vision. Bendis is writing Superman now, and most people are hating on it. I don't think that's true, man. I don't think it's true that most people are hating on it. The last thing I read was that the sales are actually pretty strong. I'm sure that there are plenty of people that don't like it. I haven't read it, so I'm not giving my opinion right now. But my understanding is that sales are pretty good, and that there have been some good critics reviews of it. So I don't know if that's 100% accurate. I'm always careful, like, what we hear on Twitter is not at all accurate for, like, the state of the comics industry. There are some very loud voices on Twitter and other social media platforms, like even YouTube. It does not at all reflect how things are going. And I'm not trying to present everything as all roses either. There's definitely plenty of issues. I'm just saying that, look at the actual statistics, and not just like what the numbers are, but like, the trends. Look at the trends, and I think things are going pretty well. They're going fine. It's not how I would do business necessarily. I think that there needs to be a lot more focus on digital and presenting the comics. Like, I would personally present like Marvel and DC stuff like in huge black and white weekly anthologies that were really cheap, and then the most popular characters and features like Spider-Man or X-Men, whatever it is, they can get printed in like, color trade paperbacks and stuff like that to put on your shelves. But I think that would definitely keep the costs down, and if you keep the costs down, you bring the readership up. There's a lot of people out there that would love to read comics that just aren't willing to pay what the prices are these days. Yeah, Reddit subs, exactly. When you mean clever dialogue, you mean like, I'm the Juggernaut, bitch? Yeah, exactly. I was not being serious when I was saying that the Juggernaut in X-Men 3 was good. Please. Please understand that. All Access is not Marvel versus DC. It was sort of a follow-up a year or two later. That's right. Yeah, Marvel versus DC was like a little better, but All Access was garbage. Even Marvel versus DC wasn't that interesting to me. Sorry, looking for like another color here. I need to figure out what these colors are. What do I got here for scrap paper? Perfect. This ain't too bad. I mean, I'm far from the world's best colorist, and I know there's not like too much depth or anything, but I think I'm hitting it with an okay color palette. This is kind of fun. I'll definitely admit that. This is lots of fun. Who's your favorite superhero? I don't know. We'll say Spider-Man. What is better, Nightfall or the death of Superman? Probably Nightfall, because I kind of liked Batman's return in that a little better than Superman's return. But yeah, the only thing I liked about Death of Superman was just how big the spectacle was, and then I liked their creation of Superboy and Steel, actually. Steel was pretty good. Eradicator and Cyborg. Actually, all the characters they created were pretty cool now that I'm thinking of it. Never mind, they all had like their uses. Cyborg, Superman, Hank Henshaw has like gone on to be a pretty huge threat. I didn't think Doomsday was that interesting. Doomsday I thought was quite a dull creation. I've never really found him that interesting when he shows up in stuff like the movies or the TV shows. I don't know. Just Doomsday doesn't do much for me. He's kind of like Hulk. Anyway. But like without any of the interesting elements. I like Bane a lot, though. Bane I find fascinating. You think the darkness is your friend. But you merely adopted it. I was born in it, molded by it. That voice, I know that wasn't a good impression, but goddamn is it fun to do an impression of Bane. And who would have expected that after Heath Ledger's amazing performance as Joker? But no, I think that Dark Knight Rises totally did justice. Yeah. Sorry, just responding to a text. I'm trying to forget that movie existed. Are you kidding? I loved the Nolan Batman trilogy. That totally worked for me, man. I thought it was great. They told a complete story, and that's what I want out of a movie. I don't want, like, comics is serialized and it goes on forever. But in movies, I want a beginning, middle, and end. And I thought that they had a good one. I thought Bane was great. I thought Bane was really well presented. But hey, your mileage may vary. What else have I got here? Let me look. Like, I don't know if Juggernaut's like sort of suit is the same color, and that's why I left that blank. So I got to look it up. I sincerely don't remember if he's like sort of two-toned or just one color. I can't remember. Let's see. Pete Holmes Batman, totally. Joker is going to be garbage. Yeah, who knows? That I don't know, man. Looks weird. Oh, okay. Looks like... Okay, looks like I messed up. Looks like a lot of the times the boots are presented as red instead of brown. So, I screwed up there, basically. He's got like a brown chest, brownish, and then like a very red midsection. So I can at least get some of this right. I tried. And failed. The moral is, kids, never try. What I'll probably do is, since these colors blend, I'll put this red on Juggernaut's boots in a moment, and hope that it blends enough that it looks a little more red. We'll see. I'll do the best I can, and that's all I can do. Right? Right.
So you think brown booties are your friend? But you merely put on brown booties. I was born in them, molded by them. I look like a pair of brown booties. My mother was a brown booty. Theatrics!
Yeah, this ain't changing it much, so I'll just use it to give it some depth. Oh, it changes a little. All right. What kind of new music have you guys discovered lately? I'm always looking for like suggestions of like good new music. I like rap. I also really like, just sort of rock, alternative like rock a lot of times, but I'll listen to a little bit of everything. So even if it's like pop, like hit me with it. I'll look it up. I'll try to read through these comments later, even if I don't read them all right now. I'm looking for recommendations on good music to sort of draw and write to. Maybe I'm going a little too fast. I'm kind of getting out of the lines a little bit. Synthwave, Aquabats, Snarky Puppy. Bob Dylan, Kenny Rogers. Sure. Listened to plenty of them over the years. Mega Drive, Sledding with Tigers. I love Garbage, actually, Gustavo. Yeah, I really like them a lot. Appreciate the suggestions, everybody. It's really kind of you. Nick Drake, Two Princes by Spin Doctors. How dare you? How dare you? Interpol, sure, I've heard of them a little bit. Metronomy. Okay. I'll look into that. Sicko Mode. Doobie Brothers. Dude, I totally respect that. Every once in a while, I like to watch a little yacht rock. If you've never seen those videos, and you're curious why I sometimes start my videos going, oh, hi, you caught me doing... Well, that's actually a deep cut reference to an old internet show called Yacht Rock. Wasn't always like related to the topic at hand, but they had Hollywood Steve go, oh, hi, you caught me, blah, blah, blah. And it just sort of reminded me of the old-fashioned like sitcoms where like, when they'd freeze frame and like, look right at the camera and things like that. So that's what I'm sort of trying to do. Thundercat, Screaming Females, Archive, Mysterious Girlfriend by Dream, Pink Floyd, The Cure. I don't know if you're saying that new music sucks or you mean new music sucks, James, because you capitalized it, so it looks like that's the band's name, New Music Sucks. I don't know, though. Ooh, I can smell a dinner being cooked downstairs. I think Chrissy's making like steak and rice. I'm a lucky guy. So I'll definitely have to consider wrapping this up soon. If I want to have that delicious dinner, which I do. Alright, let's see if I've got good gray color. Yeah. Let me try this. I'm going to try to darken a couple areas that need to be. This is what I like about how you can darken it. So like I can just go in with this warm shade of gray and I instantly just get a darker hue of the sort of brownish maroon. I like that quite a bit. It's a little bit like painting, honestly. All right, the next person to give me a super chat for $5,000, I will give you plane tickets anywhere in the world. Hello. Oh, food.
Don't gross out any vegetarians.
Thank you. That's really kind of you. I'll try not to eat a ton of this in front of y'all. Mmm. Oh, that's good. Mmm. Louisiana Fast. Right? I'm just singing commercials, jingles now. Great. Lost my mind. I'm having a good time with everybody tonight. Thanks all for joining me. Appreciate the super chat from C. Kim. That definitely helps. Appreciate all the thoughtful opinions on artists and movies and music. That's it's one of the best parts of getting to talk to all of you guys. So I lucked out with today being a snow day. I lucked out in a big way. Getting a little quiet, I suppose. I mean, I smell food. I've got this nearly done. Ready to power down, you know? Yeah, this isn't too bad. Dinner at Chris's house. Yeah, everybody come on by. All right, here, let me zoom in a little on this guy. You can see a little more of the detail, I suppose. Mm-hmm. So there we go. We've got She-Hulk versus Juggernaut. And if I had more time, probably be coloring in like, some of and adding more debris, maybe adding like some light gray undertones here and there to some of this stuff. But overall, personally, I'm kind of happy with this. Yeah, this works for me. Got a lighter shade of warm gray here that kind of helps. Well, what say you, friends out there? Does this work for you? Do you think I screwed up somewhere along the way? I'm pretty happy with this personally. I like this. But guess it doesn't matter if other people don't, right? No, that's not true. If you like your own stuff, that's you got to be your own first person to please. You gotta. Because you'll never please all the people all the time. Oh, thanks, Mandela Butterfly. I appreciate that. Never ask the internet if you screwed up. Yeah, okay, fair enough. But, there we go. A little bit of a fun drawing tonight. Fun because I got to chat with all of you while I worked on it. I had a good time tonight. Thank you all for joining me. I'm about to sign off. Got some great episodes coming up for Comic Tropes. Been hard at work. All I can say is there's a certain adaptation of a comic book that's about to debut on Netflix, and that will be the next topic, so I'm sure you can guess what that is. Thank you, Matthew McLeod. That's really awesome. Enjoy my din-din. Well, I'll enjoy it extra now. That's very kind of you. I appreciate it. Trying to just give everybody a little bit of a show, talk to all y'all. It's one of my favorite things to do. You guys are the reason the show is where it is. Like 40,000 subscribers today. That's a big deal for me. It's just going to keep growing at this rate, thanks to clever contributors and viewers like yourselves. So I'll keep doing the best that I can do. Thank you so much for your continued support. And keep reading comics. That's what I always say, and that's what I always mean. Keep reading comics. Thanks, everybody. Oh, thank you, Sanity. Jesus, maybe I should keep going with money coming in like this. But no, I do need to take off. I've got a lovely dinner here. I've got a lovely fiance I should be spending a little bit of time with. But thank you. Thank you all for making this such a great night. Like, I really appreciate it. And I will see you on Sunday. And I also have a bonus episode. I'm not sure when I'm going to fit that in, but I have made a small bonus episode. It's available to my patrons right now. And at some point soon, I'll make that public for everybody. Oh, wow. Yep, 40,000. Thank you. Thank you, Craig. I appreciate the second super chat. That's really nice of you. The channel crossed 40,000. That's not just me. I mean, I'm the one making it and all, but you guys are the ones that made that possible, and I appreciate that. Thank you for sharing it and liking it and subscribing. That means a lot. I will see you again for a live drawing session and chatting about comics, answering questions about the show as soon as possible. But yeah, I'm going to take off for now, so keep reading comics. Bye.